Welcome to Freya's Fairy Tales. We believe fairy tales are both stories we enjoyed as children and something that we can achieve ourselves. Each week, we will talk to authors about their favorite fairy tales when they were kids, and their adventure to holding their very own fairy tale in their hands. At the end of each episode, we will finish off with a fairy tale or short story read as close to the original author's version as possible. I am your host, Freya Victoria. I'm an audiobook narrator that loves reading fairy tales, novels, and bringing stories to life through narration. I'm also fascinated by talking to authors and learning about their why and how for creating their stories. We have included all of the links for today's author and our show in the show notes. Be sure to check out our website and sign up for our newsletter for the latest on the podcast. Today is part 1 of 2, where we are talking to D.K.Shepston about her novels. Over the next 2 weeks, you will hear about getting in trouble reading, jotting down book scenes as a kid on whatever surface you can find, meditating the ideas for your stories on accident, growing as an author, learning social media, getting out of your comfort zone to just keep going and get your story out there. The breaking. The mystery deepens as the virus continues its rampage in Montrose. Rebecca and Colossus must find a way to stop an enemy more lethal than the virus. But new information and unfolding events threaten the group's mission and their very lives. As pressure mounts to take bold action, rifts form between members. Rebecca and her friends are forced to make difficult choices and face unexpected challenges that will test their bonds and reveal secrets that will either bring them closer or drive them apart. How far are the newest Colossus members willing to go to do what's right? The stakes are so much higher than they could have imagined, and all Anecor citizens are in danger. If the gang breaks up, if Colossus breaks apart, humanity in Anecor is doomed. So the name of the show is Freya's Fairy Tales, and that is fairy tales in 2 ways. Fairy tales are something that we watched or listened to or read as kids. And it's also the journey of you spending weeks, months, or years writing your book to then get to hold that in your hands as a fairy tale for you. So I like to start off with, what was your favorite fairy tale when you were a kid, and did that change as you got older?
Okay, so when I was a kid, I loved to read, and I remember like Hansel and Gretel and the Three
Mm-hmm.
Little Pigs and Rapunzel being among my favorite, but we had all of those little golden books.
The nice ones?
Yes, and they were just on a shelf, and I would literally like I used to sort of get in trouble for reading too much
Oh,
because
no.
I would do it, you know, when I was at the dinner table or when company was coming over or my grandparents were visiting, I'd be hiding out reading instead of
Mm-hmm.
socializing, so
Yeah.
that was how I would get in trouble. I like to say it, but really it was because it was at times when I shouldn't have been
Yeah.
doing it instead of like times that I should have been. So I used to just kind of devour books from a very young age, like
Mm-hmm.
all the time. But those were the ones that sort of stick out in my mind in terms of fairy tales.
Okay.
Um, and then I like the Frog and Toad books. I'm probably totally dating myself here.
That's okay.
But I love those ones. And then as I got older, um, I'm trying to remember like what really, as I aged, it kind of grew out of the fairy tales and more into things like, Laura Ingalls Wilder books and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And then for a time, I taught like toddlers in a preschool,
Mm-hmm.
and then my favorite book became The Giving Tree, and
Mm.
except I hated reading it because I couldn't read it and not like cry, and so here I am in front of
Yeah.
like little 2 year olds like trying not to
I've done
trying
that a
not to
few
cry.
times narrating where I'm like, I gotta stop for a
Oh no!
minute, like get myself together.
Oh no! You're trying to like swallow it down and stay in character.
You just hope that, well, sometimes I use the emotion, but then
Yeah.
sometimes, like, when you write a character, you get very attached to the character
Mhm.
because that's like, it's basically like it's you. You're writing whatever was in your head as if you were that character at that time as you were writing it.
Right.
So narrating, I try to do it the same way where I put myself into the head of the characters. So when the dad dies tragically, or when, I had the first book that I cried on was one of the first fiction books I did. And throughout the entire book, she was slowly dying of cancer. And I
Oh.
narrated this like 3 months after my father passed away from a
Oh,
terminal illness.
no.
And I'm like, terminal, I don't know, complications from diabetes.
Oh.
And so I'm like, it was just like, I did this and I let the author know. I was like, I am so sorry. Like, there's way more emotion in this than there probably should be, but like, I couldn't pull myself out of it. So
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
now I
That's
know I need to wait a few more months before trying to do anything. And then the next book
Wow.
that I did, it was actually a talking horse.
Hmm?
It's a fantasy, and it was this talking horse, but it was like he could, like, mind speak, not speak, and he
Right.
dies tragically, but
Oh,
everybody as
jeez.
he dies, he sends out this, like, telepathic thing, and everybody hears him die. And then not
Oh,
only did I have
oh,
to
I
do
think
it
I'm
the
starting to tear
one
up now.
time, then there was, like, flashes of it throughout the entire next book in the series, and I'm just like, "Oh my god."
Oh. Oh, no, I would yeah, the kudos to you, that would be hard.
So that's where you just hope you're not doing it where it's video recording you and you get the, like, ugly crying tears as you're trying to, like, get yourself together. It works sometimes.
Like, the pause button comes in really handy, I'm sure.
Yeah. So so you were a school teacher, um, in a past life.
Yeah, I've been many things in a past life. I yeah, I taught preschool when I was over in Germany, like, I traveled over there and landed in this beautiful setting, and the American military had a setup there
Mhm.
and in Germany, and I got a job at the childcare center. So I did that like while I was in Germany,
Okay.
um, like just traveling, playing, having fun, doing like just taking a break from life sort of thing. And then I worked with people with disabilities for a while, and then I went back to school and I actually got a master's in reading language arts, writing and social studies for middle school, 4 through 8 actually. And so then I taught. I did my education there, and then when I went on for my PhD, I went on for a second master's in anthropology, and then
Unrelated.
yeah, I studied primates, so like that's pretty related. Primates, we are, uh, but and then I went on for a PhD in environmental geography. So I've had this like long trajectory of like different experiences and
Mhm.
education and all that kind of stuff. And then wound up teaching at college level, which I still do some of, and then teaching kindergarten through fifth grader science.
Okay.
Um,
And so at what age did you start, like, writing your own stuff?
um, when I was young, I mean, I've been a pretty avid keeper my whole life, but when I
Mhm.
was young, I used to just jot down like scenes that would pop into my head, like on napkins and sometimes in my journal and sometimes on a notebook or whatever. But they
Mhm.
never really amounted to a story. But I had this sort of like fantasy in my mind of writing a book someday,
Okay.
and I was like, I don't know, probably it was probably like starting at 8 years old or so, I would start doing this. And then by the
Mhm.
time I hit my teenage years, I was just like, oh, all that like,
I'm
oh,
too
who
cool for
makes the
this.
well, no, like I'm not talented enough for this. Like
Oh, okay.
I don't have the imagination to write a whole book, and all those self-doubts and like who makes money as a writer, and I've got to do something like more like normal, I guess, is in my little teenage mind, like
Okay.
that was like, go to college for this and do this. And I still didn't take that track, right? Like I still just sort of did my own thing.
Mhm.
And enough, like I didn't like when I was in college, I wrote obviously all kinds of stuff all the way through my, thesis and a dissertation and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I had this, I didn't really want people to see my writing.
Okay.
And then I did something completely crazy and w- quit it all full time and just started like kind of navigating. I decided I wanted to travel for a while around the United States, and so
Okay.
saved up some money and I started. I bought a RV, an old RV, and renovated it, and started traveling around the United States, and was started writing a blog, and
Okay.
that sort of initiated stuff like that
Is this where the
sort of
RV cat book came from?
this is where the RV cat book came
Okay.
from. That was the first thing I wrote that was like a book form other than the blog that I was writing.
Okay.
And that's where that came from was that. And then I still didn't have any like thing about writing fiction. I thought, well, I'd write about my journey and I'd write a book about what happened on my journey.
Mhm.
And then I was meditating one day
Okay.
and all of a sudden the storyline for this trilogy like just I wasn't meditating about anything and it just sort of erupted into my mind and I was like what and I was like that would be kind of fun and so that actually started my fiction writing journey and now I'm like oh well no wonder I loved to do this when I was a kid like now this is what I want to do
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here and every time I turn around, a new story idea is popping into my head faster than what
Mhm.
I can write the current one I'm writing, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, it was what in my upper 40s that I actually took the leap into fiction writing.
So
So,
the first book that you did was the nonfiction. How long did
right.
it take you to did you just use your blog posts and compile those together for that one, or how long
No,
did
my
that one take to write?
that one is just a short little thing and
Okay.
it probably only took me a couple of weeks to write it. What had happened was that I have cats that my best
Mhm.
friend travels with me and there are 4 cats
Oh gosh.
traveling in the RV and people always thought it was just like whoa, you have like cats? How they do in an RV? And so I'd get a lot of questions about that on like
Mhm.
Instagram or whatever. So I thought, so many people are asking these questions. I'm just going to write out a little book about like how to prepare for it, what to do to your RV, and how to
Mhm.
get your cats and yourself ready and different things I learned. So that to me was not like it was fun to write, and I
Mhm.
did some little doodle drawings and they're just hand drawing just for fun for me
Yeah.
and put it up there and oddly, like, yeah, it was a different experience, like, putting that out there um, and people seem to find that book, without me doing anything because I guess not a lot of people write little how-to books about traveling with cats.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was my very first one, and that one was fast. It was like, I don't know, 2 weeks, but it's like 68 pages or 60 pages,
Okay,
something
so
like that. It's pretty
pretty
short.
short, yeah.
Yeah, it's a short book.
So then your first fiction book, was that the children's one or was that the trilogy?
It was the first book of the trilogy,
And
and I, um, wrote that one that was published in 2019,
mhm.
and, in between that I'm trying to remember the order of things. In between that and the second book in the trilogy, I wrote the children's book,
Okay, so how
and,
long did it take you to write the first fiction in the YA one?
um, the YA book took me It wasn't so at that time, I was just living off of my savings.
Okay.
So I all I had to do was write and get outside and, travel a little bit and get outside and hike and stuff like that. So I was able to
Mhm.
actually finish that one probably within about a month and a half.
Okay.
Um, and writing it and some of that time was taken like traveling for a long distance, so it one that one didn't that one came pretty quickly.
Okay. And so
um
you write it in like a month and a half, and then what did you do with it once you had it like finished? Or the
uh
first draft finished? What happened
Cried,
next?
no. um Cried because I actually did it.
Yeah.
um no, um I read it again, and
Mhm.
so I was so new to this whole like author process.
Mhm.
So a lot of the stuff that I did was just sort of feeling my way through. So when I was done, I didn't know anybody else who had written books, and I wasn't connected to authors on social media or anything like that, and so I was finding things a little bit on the internet, but um I wrote the book, I read through it, and then I sent it out to several people that I know and trust to like tell me if they think it's crap, like
Mhm.
that, or say, you know
Yeah.
what, Desiree, I like can't finish this book because it's not my thing or whatever. Like I know them, but I trust them
To be honest.
implicitly to be honest, and they're thorough readers, they're good like editors. One of them is a teacher in middle school, and a science teacher at that, because this is YA dystopian sci-fi.
Mhm.
And so I trust them like implicitly to be very, very honest and very brutal. And so they helped me like make it a lot better from that
Mhm.
that first one. And they're really good at catching blunders in the writing too. I mean, I was getting
Mhm.
all these things like, oh, well, there was a discrepancy here, and oh, I don't think that was the person you meant, or all these typos and
Yeah.
those sorts of grammar things that you don't want to really slip through. So they did that and worked with me and read it a few times through, and then I just put it up on Amazon. I found out about self-publishing and was like, well, that's the route I'm going to go.
Mhm.
And so I did the whole self-publishing thing and put it
So
up on
did
Amazon.
you make your own cover or did you have your cover made?
So my first cover, I'm on the second cover. My first cover,
Okay. So we've had a
my,
redo already.
we've had a redo. Yeah, my first cover, I liked it. I still like my first cover. Um, and the first cover I had gone through um, somebody on Fiverr,
Okay.
and I had a really strong idea about what I wanted, and so I
Mhm.
I sort of picked out the like stock images, and she did the design and put it all
Okay.
together and did all of that, and she did a fabulous job with it. And she did that for my first and second book. And like I said, I kind of I don't dislike my covers, but I wanted to do something that was more thematic across like all three books, and then
Okay.
that was more probably in keeping more strongly with the genre.
Okay.
So that
Yeah,
was
because
the
I
reason why
saw
I had them change.
I saw the covers and they do look very genre like appropriate for what covers are in YA right now.
Right.
Um, so the previous ones just didn't quite fit all the way.
Right. They they were sort of cool, but the first one might have fit fairly well.
Mhm.
Um, the second one not at all. It was a fun sci-fi sort of cover, but it didn't really it was just a little off of
Okay.
the genre
So you had
of
them
YA.
redesigned to where they all
Mhm.
kind of look like they belong together, judging
Yes.
by the first 2 at least that are up right now.
Right, and the 3rd
Yeah.
one is gonna be I'll have the same people, the 3rd one as I did the other 2.
Okay,
So,
and
it will have
so
the same kinda thing going on.
were you getting like, what made you redesign it? You just thought, like, "I should probably update this," or did someone, like, comment and tell you, "Hey, something's wrong with it?" Like, what made you decide to change it?
Couple of things of I think mostly a lot of it was just, kind of participating in more author groups on
Mhm.
social media and realizing, like, just getting more educated about, like, kinda what all goes into cover design versus my own my own instincts weren't necessarily bad, but they were just a little off
Yeah.
versus having somebody do it who was, like, professional and knew exactly what would go into this type of genre and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. And so it was just education. It was just really finding out a lot more and thinking, well, mine aren't bad, but they're not quite it either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to boost that up a little bit and be able to republish it with the new cover on it. And then
Okay.
at the same time, I made some like more edits and revisions and stuff like that, and I like kind of re-released the whole entire thing, or the first 2 books, also in anticipation of the 3rd book coming out.
Okay. So you put them up on Amazon, and then what did you kind of do to, or did you do anything to help promote your books? I imagine with the redesign, you probably did a little bit more than with the initial one.
Right. It's so funny because like I am not um I'm not, like, a natural at self-promotion. I'm a pretty introverted person,
Mhm.
and pretty, I'm pretty shy by nature, but I've obviously at my age have learned have figured it out, but, I'm also not, really I don't do a whole lot on social media. So I sort of counted on other people to promote my stuff on social media, like
Okay.
my family members to say here and I did like at the school where I was working at, I passed things out, but then I did do ads too. So I did
Okay.
Amazon ads, I did Facebook ads and I figured out the whole ad thing and I've learned a lot more about that too. And then like recently I've done other types of like giveaway promotions and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um and so that's definitely and so many authors have this. Like I'm just it actually is kind of nice to know that I'm not I'm not the only person who's like, ooh,
Yeah.
self-promotion. How do I
Yeah.
do it?
That's like the overarching majority are introverts that have
Mhm.
to pull themselves out of their bubble in
Yeah.
order to, whatever, like me, for example, I would rather not be doing this, but I have a lot of fun doing this, but then like I'll be sitting in my chair doing like reading for the rest of the day. Like I
Oh, that
don't
sounds so lovely.
yeah. So like I do these interviews and like I was actually talking to my grandma about Christmas. Me and my uncle were mutually discussing the like things that make us weird, basically. And my
I love it.
grandma's like, "You guys don't seem like," she turns to me and she's like, "You seem normal. You don't seem like you have a problem talking to people." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's the
Uh,
problem. Like I can fake it really good, but I don't want to do it."
right. It's like you have to like gear yourself up for it. And then when you're done, you're like, yeah, you know what? I need a nap for the rest of the day and just like
So
not talk to anybody.
I finally figured out, let's see, I started narrating in 2021 and I figured out like if I put myself on a schedule, so like
Ooh.
if I say, "Oh, I'm going to post on TikTok once a day Monday through Friday," I'm fine cuz like I know, like I get into the recording booth to record book.
Yeah.
And then I, first thing that I do, I warm up get my vocal cords working, and then I post a TikTok, and then I go about the rest. Like it's just regimented. Like I do things in that order,
Yes.
and it works fine. I the awkwardness of being on camera. I started a fiction podcast, and I was like, we're gonna put like behind the scenes up on YouTube. So I just put my phone in front of my face, record myself reading the story, and sometimes I'm like jabbering about who knows what about the story, or you'll get like Frankenstein. I did Frankenstein around Halloween, and half the time I'm just going, "What the hell is wrong with this guy?" I'm like, it's such a weird story, but so you'll get a little more of the like behind the scenes. But I
Yes.
started doing that, and then when I started promoting like fiction audiobooks that I was doing, like for money to get paid, I started recording like, sections of the books that I was doing, which I was already comfortable with doing from the
Yeah.
fiction podcast. So it's like just the building. And now I schedule out like, oh, you need to send out newsletters and like all that. So I
Oh,
like schedule everything I have reminders on my phone for like, the night before it needs to go out. Make sure you schedule your newsletter to go out or, you know,
so what do you like? I have a question for you. I like to
okay,
pick other authors' brains
you're
about
fine.
like things like and creatives their brains about like
Hmm.
when you do your newsletter, how often do you put it out, and like do you stick to some sort of theme when you write it, or what goes into your newsletter?
So I have 3 because I have 2
Oh,
podcasts I send out newsletters for, and then I have the one for, like, the narrating author, Freya Victoria name. So the podcast ones I send out for the daily fiction one, I send it out when a new book starts, and then because like, each season of the podcast is a different classic, old school
okay.
public domain novel. So, like, right now I'm doing Anne's House of Dreams. So I'll do like when the new book starts, I'll send out a hey, the new book is starting. And then at the beginning of the month, I try to send one on the first because some of those books are really long. So you may not have
Yeah.
seen a newsletter in a long time.
Right.
But for that one, it's just like, here's what we just finished, here's what we're starting, here's what's coming next. And then usually like something, going on in my life at the time. Same for this podcast. I do every Monday when the episodes release. I'll say,
Okay.
this is the author that we're talking about, and I'll put like what's going to be in the episodes. And then like I think that's pretty much it for this. Oh, and then the book links. So I'll put the
Yeah,
author bio
I
and then
get this
about the
one.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then for Freya, I do once a week on Fridays. And for that one, I'll do like a little thing of just me like talking about what's going on in life. And then
Okay.
I'll do like, here's the status of the audiobooks. Like, here's the one I'm currently narrating. Here's the ones that are like waiting on author approval. Here's the one I'm currently prepping to narrate, which just means reading through and labeling characters and they're
Right.
identifying stuff. And then I'll put like, this is the book I'm reading for fun. So it's just more like, here's what's going on. I mean, I have like a set, what's it called?
Format.
Yeah, it's like they don't call it a format though. It's like a
Uh,
set template, that's what it is. It's like a
yeah, that's
template.
what
So
I was
I've
just
like
gonna say. Is it
I've
a
set up
template?
yeah, so I've set up like my template for each of those things. Like this is the template I want to use and then I just plug in like the new books or whatever. So right
Okay.
now I have quite a list of audiobooks that I'm waiting for author approval. So I keep having to add extra images to that section as I wait on these authors to approve their stuff.
Oh my gosh.
But then when I have like ones waiting for ACX quality to approve it, I move it into that section well,
Oh,
right now that section's not there because I'm still waiting for I gotta do edits on some audiobooks tomorrow to get some added into that section. So sometimes it's waiting on me. It's like I'm waiting on the author to approve the final version that I have to provide my edits for. So it's just
wow.
general updates and
Okay.
from what I've seen, like you can do a monthly or a bi-week. You want to do it often enough that people remember you exist, but
Right.
not so often that you're driving them
That
crazy.
they're like, oh my gosh, what
Yeah.
I should quit sending these things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for me because I'm going through like let's see, a 50,000 word audiobook is going to take me like 4 days. So like every week I have a constant influx of the only thing
Yeah.
that hasn't changed is the book I'm reading for fun has been the same for months cuz I'm reading like a chapter a day and it takes a long time to get through a book at that rate.
Yeah.
So it's been Handmaid's Tale for several months now. Those are short chapters though. Like the book's not that big, but the chapters are only like I don't know, 1,200 words maybe? They're
Yeah.
short chapters. Um, I mean, if I was doing like I don't know, I'm trying to think of a book that has really like I know the Outlander books all have really long
Long.
chapters. Some are short,
Yeah.
most are very long.
Yeah.
So I can go through I just happened to already be reading Handmaid's Tale when I was like, we're gonna read a chapter a day at the beginning of this year. So I'm like, we're gonna finish this book we're currently reading.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it's
Wow.
I set a template, and I also have like my social media links on there so
Yeah.
that if you've if you found me on TikTok, you can follow me on the other places if you want.
Right.
So I mean,
Wow.
it's and I've seen at this point I've joined quite a few author newsletters. A lot will do like giveaways,
Right.
or hey, here my friend released this book, or
Spotlights. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, it's just kind of what you can do. I mean, mine's already long with just all the stuff I have going on. So I'm like,
Right.
there's a lot
Right.
on there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the other thing, right? You have to be mindful of links so that they're
Yeah.
like, actually read the whole thing.
Well, it's like most of it. So I don't have the only books that I do like the blurb on the newsletter is the one I'm currently narrating, the one that I'm prepping, and then the one that I'm reading for fun. All the other ones, because it's probably already been on a newsletter, I don't
Right.
do blurbs for every single book cover that's on my thing. A large, like with the author currently are waiting for it to be approved to go live on Audible. Those ones I just do the picture of like the
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it's I also have a section for like, "Hey, these ones just released," so that you can I mean, it's mine is a long one, I don't most people wouldn't need it to be that long, but, like,
Yeah.
I don't wanna leave off someone's book and then be like, "Why'd you leave me
Right.
off your newsletter?"
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what did you use to learn how to do the ads? Because I know that's a big, like, thing
Um,
that takes it's a learning curve for everybody.
and I just, when I first started doing it, I was just winging it, and so I probably spent way more money than I needed to for,
Yeah.
like, ads because I didn't really know how they worked, and then, I have taken some courses
Mhm.
on how to do the ads, and those are super helpful, but, it's something that you can't just take one class because like all of this stuff like they all sort of change how they do things on a very regular
Mhm.
basis. So one thing might work for like 6 months or whatever, and then you're like, wait a minute, I'm not getting any results here.
Right.
And or like it's you know it's I know like Facebook, and I haven't done a Facebook ad in a while, but Facebook has become a lot more challenging for authors
Mhm.
in doing the ads, and so I know a lot of people are experiencing quite a bit of frustration with
Mhm.
trying to figure out how to do those ads with the new like sort of constraints and stuff that Facebook has put on,
Mhm.
and the stuff that they're doing. So I feel like that is something that you just never figure out. It's sort of like
It's
you're
a
always
constantly
figuring it out.
moving target. Like it's
Yes.
I did
Yes.
I did podcast ads for a while, probably like almost the first year,
Uh-huh.
maybe. I may have stopped before a year. But like the only like comments I would get on posts and stuff, I mean, I was hoping to get listeners, so I wanted link clicks.
Right.
And, like, mostly what I would get was, like, people would leave usually very rude comments about it, and I'm just like, "Whatever," and then I'm like, "Alright, we're gonna experiment. We're gonna stop posting any ads and see what happens," and my listeners did not go down. So
Oh, wow.
well, we'll just keep now. I do post multiple times a day across like all the social, like major social medias. So like I'm still like putting in an effort to free advertise essentially. Like I'm,
Right.
putting in the effort to post. I have a scheduler where I go to one place and it posts
Wow.
to everywhere for me.
Oh gosh, that's so
But
nice.
it was one of those, like, I was going to each place because I was like, "Free. If you just go to each place individually, it's free to post that way." And then I was like, "This is taking me hours every day to post for 3 podcasts across all these things." So I started paying for a scheduler where I can do the same post in all the places at once and schedule it ahead of time, and then I don't have to touch it. So,
Yeah,
um
and then, like, if you can schedule it ahead of time, you can also bank
yeah.
them up and say, "I'm just
Yeah.
gonna spend X amount of time, get them all set up for, like, the next few days or the next week or
Yeah.
whatever," and you just chunk it. I think that I haven't quite gotten the handle on that yet. But, like, theoretically, I know a lot of authors do that is for, like,
Mhm.
TikTok and stuff. It's like, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna save them all to drafts and then I just can
Rapid
go on and
release.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's what I so for podcasts, for, like, the daily fiction one, so daily, I'm doing a chapter a day in that one. So I'll typically record 2 or 3 chapters a day, so in case I get sick or go on vacation or
Yeah.
something happens, I've got, you know, episodes banked so that I don't have to be there. So when I am listening back through what I recorded, I'm taking like the first section of that chapter and I make like little quote slides. So make like
Uh-huh.
videos and then I'll immediately
Wow.
schedule those. So like right now I have scheduled into like mid-February because that's how many episodes ahead I am on that
Oh,
podcast.
nice.
So so I'm like I don't have to touch it now. I did just change my scheduler website this week because it was, like, half price, and when you're
Oh,
talking in the
nice.
multiple $100s, half price is nice.
Oh, yes.
Um, Plus my previous one, it was, like it would schedule, like, Facebook posts and Twitter posts and Instagram posts, but it wouldn't do Reels, which
Oh,
yeah, so I'm like, "Well, that's
everybody's
gross."
doing yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like so I'd have to go to Facebook and TikTok and YouTube to do, like, the short stuff, and I'm like, "That's annoying," so I found one that does all of the
Oh,
things,
nice.
and it's half the cost of the previous one, so
Bonus.
yeah, I'm like, even if it wasn't doing those, half price when you're talking about it was $700 for my previous one for the year,
Oh.
for a
Oh,
year.
for the year,
Yeah,
okay.
for a year.
It's like, wow.
So, cut that in almost half, I'm like,
Yeah,
worth
that's
it.
huge. Yeah,
So,
I would say so.
I'm like
Wow.
I mean, and then it's a learning curve like it is with ads. You have to learn this
Right.
whole new software essentially. Like, how does this
Mhm.
one work? Because I'm used to the buttons being one way. I've been using it for a
Right.
year. So you gotta figure it out. So now I have to go delete 3 weeks worth of posts and put them in the new one because they're in the
Uh.
old one. So
Wow, it's like a full-time job doing all of the business
yeah.
administrative and of, like,
Yeah.
creative stuff, like, you really do have to learn,
You
um
have to learn what works for you and what is
yeah,
the like, I used to, like, when I started doing the little quote slides, I would,
uh-huh,
like, skim through the chapter. Like, this is after I've already spent the time recording it. I would skim through the chapter to find, like, the most interesting part. Well, that takes time. So
yeah.
I'm like, "Screw this. We're just gonna put the first couple sentences on these slides." I have a template for my slides where I just have to paste it into the text box.
Nice.
And then I export it and put it into the social media sketch. So, like, now, less than 5 minutes to get them done and uploaded into the scheduler while I'm listening through the
Wow.
episode. So,
Okay,
it's like
that's so much
I'm like,
easier.
everything is like, get it same with, like, author stuff. So, I have the scheduler you set up, like, I want it to post at these times. Um, and, like, I did a bunch of research at one point for, like, how many times should you be posting on Facebook a day
Uh-huh.
or whatever.
And
So
TikTok and this and that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I have, like, my times set up where it's like and I have a spreadsheet that tells me, like, at the 7 o'clock slot, post on these ones, and then on so there's
Right.
a little bit of manualness to it, but, Eventually, I kind of remembered that, but new scheduler, new way I have to do things, have to
Right.
remember how. Eventually, it'll be like, oh, click, 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 done. But right now, I have a spreadsheet that has like, here's the hashtags we're using for this post. So copy,
Yeah.
copy, paste is your friend when it
And
comes to social media.
yeah, and, that's something like, when I was getting my PhD,
Mhm.
Facebook was my, like, avoidance thing, right? Like, "Oh my gosh, I don't wanna do this, so I'm gonna just scroll
Scroll
for
Facebook. Yeah.
hours on Facebook." And then at some point, I ended up just being like, "Oh my gosh, Facebook's taking up so much of my time," so I got off of it. And you know what? Like, once you sort of extract yourself from, like, that, like, environment,
Mhm.
uh, for me at least, I find it hard to get back into it. I find it
Yeah.
hard to, like, all of a sudden, like, this thing that I used to spend, like, forever killing time on,
Mhm.
now, like, it's a business thing, right?
Yeah.
And
You
it's like,
have to do it now.
how do I get back into this
Yeah.
in a way where I actually remember that it exists? Because
Yeah.
it's just like no longer in my purview of like things I do in my day.
Yeah.
So the whole scheduling thing, like I totally get that, because if I didn't have like reminders, if I didn't do that, like it just wouldn't even cross my mind to like
Yeah.
look at any of the social media things.
Yeah, my thing is like TikTok now. I spend way too much time on that. So now I'm like, all right, when you're eating meals, so you can't physically be doing anything else. I mean, I could read a book, a fun book, I guess.
Right.
But when I'm like
Yes.
prepping a narrating book, I have a spreadsheet where I keep track of the chapters and what characters talk in that chapters and like,
Right.
do you describe them as having an annoying voice or a deep voice or a husky voice? Like all those I have in a spreadsheet that I can reference while I'm narrating.
Right.
So I can't be doing that while I'm eating. So I'm like, all
No.
right, you can watch TikTok or scroll through Facebook or, that is your social media time while you're eating meals. Do that. And then when
Right.
you're done eating, and I usually wait till the next like
Right.
15-minute interval or something, but it's like then it's time to get back to work, get stuff done.
Yeah. I'm still working on the whole, like, because you have to, in some I know at least for TikTok, like, and for a lot of them, like, you have to engage too in
Mm-hmm.
order to, get the algorithm to pick up on you, but,
Yeah.
also, more importantly, um, you have to have some sort of engagement, to have a relationship with the people that are already
Yeah.
on there with you. So it's like,
Yes.
you want to find a new audience, but you also like want to be, um participating with the people that are on there, because it's a community,
Yeah.
and you are a part of it, and so yeah, you want to actually engage, so you do have to like spend time on there.
Yeah, I'm
you know
trying to like I'm probably the least interactive narrator that's on there, and I've tried like this last week I'd tried to do a couple videos about like why, and I'm just like in my awkward brain commenting on things just doesn't come naturally. So it's like, it's not that I
Yeah,
don't like you. It's
right,
that like it doesn't now if you comment on my video, I'm gonna comment back because like
right.
you have, reached out to me.
You've
Uh
taken the initiative, like,
yeah,
yeah.
but I'm like, my
Hello,
brain is just
introverts.
like, yeah, my brain is just like, why would I want it? Now there's some people that I do, like if they post a question or something, I'll respond to it or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, like that it does not come naturally to me at all. I have to like make myself like interact with someone.
Yeah, I am so right there with you. Like, like, natural self, is, my nature, initiating is definitely the harder thing. I'm all about
Yeah.
responding, I can totally do that, but I have to push out, that's outside of my comfort zone too, so it's like I have to, like, "Oh, like, be brave, step out there,"
It's
and
almost like I haven't done this, but it's almost like I've put like a you must respond to 5 people a day. Like not that
yeah.
I've like said that to myself, but
Right.
I kind of have that like in the back of my head like you need to respond to like some
Right,
people today.
right.
DK liked The Three Little Pigs growing up. The Three Little Pigs is a fable about three pigs who build their houses on different materials. A big bad wolf blows down the first two pigs' houses, which are made of straw and sticks, respectively, but is unable to destroy the third pig's house that is made of bricks. The printed versions of this fable date back to the 1840s, but the story is thought to be much older. The earliest version takes place in Dartmoor with three pixies and a fox, before its best-known version appears in English fairy tales by Joseph Jacobs in 1890, with Jacobs crediting James Halliwell Phillips as the source. The phrase is used in the story, and the various morals drawn from it have become embedded in Western culture. Many versions of The Three Little Pigs have been recreated and modified over the years, sometimes making the wolf a kind of character. It is a type B124 folktale in the Thomson Motif Index. Today we'll be reading The Three Little Pigs by Joseph Jacobs. Don't forget we're reading Les Morts d'Arthur, the story of King Arthur and of his noble knights of the Round Table on our Patreon. You can find the link in the show notes. The Story of the Three Little Pigs. Once upon a time, when pigs spoke rhyme, and monkeys chewed tobacco, and hens took snuff to make them tough, and ducks went quack, 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 oh, there was an old sow with three little pigs, and as she had not enough to keep them, she sent them out to seek their fortune. The first that went off met a man with a bundle of straw and said to him, "Please, man, give me that straw to build me a house," which the man did, and the little pig built a house with it. Presently came along a wolf and knocked at the door and said, little pig, let me come in." To which the pig answered, "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." The wolf then answered to that, "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew his house in and ate up the little pig. The second little pig met a man with a bundle of furs and said, "Please, man, give me that furs to build a house," which the man did, and the pig built his house. Then along came the wolf and said, little pig, let me come in." "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll puff, and I'll huff, and I'll blow your house in." So he huffed, and he puffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and at last he blew the house down and he ate up the little pig. The third little pig met a man with a load of bricks and said, "Please, man, give me those bricks to build a house with." So the man gave him the bricks and he built his house with them. So the wolf came, as he did to the other little pigs, and said, little pig, let me come in." "No, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin." "Then I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in." Well, he huffed, and he puffed, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he puffed and huffed, but could not get the house down. When he found that he could not, with all his huffing and puffing blow the house down, he said, little pig, I know where there's a nice field of turnips." "Where?" said the little pig. "Oh, in Mr. Smith's home field, and if you will be ready tomorrow morning, I will call for you and we will go together and get some for dinner." "Very well," said the little pig. "I'll be ready. What time do you mean to go?" "Oh, at 6 o'clock." Well, the little pig got up at 5 and got the turnips before the wolf came, which he did about 6, and who said, little pig, are you ready? The little pig said, "Ready, I've been and come back again and got a nice potful for dinner." The wolf felt very angry at this, but thought that he would be up to the little pig somehow or other, so he said, little pig, I know where there's a nice apple tree." "Where?" said the pig. "Down at Merry Garden," replied the wolf, "and if you will not deceive me, I will come for you at 5 o'clock tomorrow and get some apples." Well, the little pig bustled up the next morning at 4 o'clock and went off for the apples, hoping to get back before the wolf came. But he had further to go, and had to climb the tree, so that just as he was coming down from it, he saw the wolf coming, which, as you may suppose, frightened him very much. When the wolf came up, he said, "Little pig, what? Are you here before me? Are they nice apples?" "Yes, very," said the little pig. "I will throw you down one." And he threw it so far that while the wolf was gone to pick it up, the little pig jumped down and ran home. The next day, the wolf came again and said to the little pig, "Little pig, there's a fair at Shanklin this afternoon. Will you go?" "Oh, yes," said the pig. "I will go. What time shall you be ready?" "At 3," said the wolf. So the little pig went off before the time as usual and got to the fair, and bought a butter churn which he was going home with when he saw the wolf coming. Then he could not tell what to do. So he got into the churn to hide, and by so doing turned it round, and it rolled down the hill with the pig in it, which frightened the wolf so much that he ran home without going to the fair. He went to the little pig's house and told him how frightened he had been by a great round thing which came down the hill past him. And the little pig said, "I frightened you then. I had been to the fair and bought a butter churn, and when I saw you I got into it and rolled down the hill." Then the wolf was very angry indeed and declared he would eat up the little pig, and that he would get down the chimney after him. When the little pig saw what he was about, he hung on the pot full of water and made up a blazing fire. And just as the wolf was coming down, took off the cover, and in fell the wolf. So the little pig put on the cover again in an instant, boiled him up and ate him for supper, and lived happy ever afterwards. Thank you for joining Freya's Fairy Tales. Be sure to come back next week for the conclusion of DK's journey to holding her own fairy tale in her hands, and to hear another of her favorite fairy tales.